Hola, hola, amigas. I would normally start this episode with Happy New Year. And although I truly hope that you made time to rest and recharge during the holiday season, the reality is that right now we are experiencing great devastation in LA. It is definitely weighing heavy in my heart, and I'm feeling the heavy collective energy. Back in 2020, I offered monthly, if not bi-weekly, energy healings to support the community. But the reality this time is that I don't have that emotional capacity to do that. I'm grieving and really feeling emotionally taxed. So I want to invite you to not feel pressured into how others think you should be feeling or even showing up. Listen to your body. For me, what I can do at this time is donate financially. There are many people who have been able to show up to support in person and volunteer. And those are the people I am supporting in the way that I can right now. And as it is a new year, I want to also invite you to not feel pressured into setting goals and picking your word of the year, joining the gym or yoga studio, starting a diet and feeling like you're behind because everyone else on your feed might be doing it. It might just appear that way when you're scrolling. We are actually meant to rest and relax during the winter period. I've read that nature's new year actually begins in the spring, and this makes so much more sense to me. Personally, I took 2 weeks off to travel to Costa Rica and relax during the holidays. It was the last week of December and the first week of January. I love starting my week, or I love starting my year, I should say, with downtime. I've been doing it for several years and it really nourishes my soul. I actually don't start my New Year's planning for my business until the end of January or sometimes even beginning of February. So I want to encourage you to simply be and not feel pressured into busying yourself, gearing up for the new year 2025. We were really Or I should say, we were already most likely busybodies during the holidays with all the shopping and the cooking and the decorating and hosting and parties. And for those in the LA area, this emotional toll of having to deal with this devastation. So going back to my Costa Rica trip, last year we enjoyed a week and a half in Costa Rica and we loved it so much that we went back to the exact same Airbnb for 2 weeks this past holiday. We did a few activities. We visited Manuel Antonio National Park and saw lots of cute monkeys. Only one sloth, was hoping for more. We also rode ATVs and visited Isla de la Tortuga. Other than that, we did a bunch of relaxing at home while it rained. We got unusual weather for this time of year. So a couple days we were just indoors resting and reading and watching movies. A couple of days we did get caught in the rainstorm. We were walking out to a breakfast spot nearby and on our way back we got caught in the rain and completely soaked. I got sick with a horrible cough, and we finally got some beautiful sun toward the end of our trip and got to enjoy some much needed beach time in the sun, enjoying the water, the beautiful waves, and had some downtime. So one of those days while we were staying dry indoors watching Netflix, we were watching the Aaron Rodgers documentary, and he was sharing about his awakening journey, about doing ayahuasca and sweat lodge ceremonies, specifically in Costa Rica. And so we were like, oh, wow, cool. He shared more about his spiritual awakening, and it was really beautiful. I highly recommend that series. But shortly after watching the show, my brother, who was with us on the trip as well, sent a link to a Temazcal Sweat Lodge that was just down the road from where we were staying at. It was like a 10-minute walk. And I honestly had never had any interest in sweat lodges. They kind of scare me. My brother himself has been in one before, like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and has shared his experience. And I was really scared. And even with what Aaron shared in the Netflix documentary, I just thought it was a little intense. But, my brother was gung ho on doing it. He called, got all the info, and said, "This is how much it is. It's going to be a 3.5 hour ceremony. This is what we got to take. Who's in?" And so he was in, his girlfriend was in, my boyfriend's daughter and her boyfriend decided to do it. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do it then. If we do it in group, people I know, I'll do it. Okay, cool. Let's go check it out. So we decided to do it. And that's what I'm sharing today is my experience in this Temazcal ceremony. So first off, I'll explain what this place looked like. We walked down the road to get to this place, and he had a little house that housed a small indoor pool with a lot of beautiful plants all around. He had a little kitchen and a hammock and this, beautiful rustic table. And just kind of, he walked us into this cool pool place and, had us set our belongings down. And then when you walked behind this building, this little house was another building, which looked like was the place where, his sleeping quarters. But between these two buildings was the Temazcal, which is like a little hut. It almost looks like an igloo made of stone, of lava, of rock. I don't know, something. But then this structure is covered in like fabrics and mats and things like that. And inside, it's round, obviously, and it's small. It could maybe fit maybe 8 people. And in the center inside is a little like a fire pit. And this is where he places hot stones that then make the sweat lodge, this structure, heat up. And then when everybody's inside the the structure, the temazcal, then he closes the small little entry door with a mat so that all the steam stays inside. So it's a sweat lodge. You get in there and you're going to be sweating. So clearly I was really scared of being in this place. I was told the ceremony was 3.5 hours long. So I thought, okay, small ceremony before, small ceremony after. I was anticipating being in this sweat lodge for 2.5 to 3 hours, nonstop. So I was a little scared, but I went with it. I thought, okay, if I need to get out, then I'm going to speak up and not allow myself to faint in this thing and, walk outside if I have to. So, we before going in, we get down into our swimwear. He told us to to bring a lot of water, a swimsuit, a change of clothes, and that's it. I knew enough to hydrate heavily the day, the 24 hours leading up to this. But other than that, we really didn't have any instructions. I really didn't know what to expect. I very, very briefly read the reviews on this place and thought, okay, seems legit. But I really did not know what to expect. So we line up to get into this little hut. Actually, before getting in, he had us all obviously in our swimmer to get into this little pool, this little splash pool, and just told us to sit there and refresh. And in the meantime, he was out by this in front of the Temazcal, he had a fire pit outside where he was warming up stones, where he had these stones in this fire pit and this fire heating them up. So that's what he was doing. Um, and I'm sure preparing himself mentally and spiritually for this ceremony. So then he called us in. He says, okay, we're ready. So we go and line up to get into this Temazcal. And he has us first shower ourselves in this outdoor shower head that he has before getting into the sweat lodge. And then we line up to get into the temazcal, and he has us take a few deep breaths before we walk in. Then he puts his hands on our head and, does some, I don't know, he's probably preparing us or himself or clearing our energy before we walk into this place. And then he lets us in one at a time. He does this. And so once we're in, we sit around, and you can't stand in this temazcal. It's small, it's little, it's short, so you just walk in and you take a seat in these little cushions that he has inside, around the little fire pit. And then he walked in, or he placed, once we were all in, he placed the hot stones in the fire pit, and then he came in, and then he, sat himself right in front of the door and then pulled down this mat to cover the door. So what ended up happening is that he calls it 4 doors. We did 4 doors. That means we went in and out of this temazcal 4 times throughout the course of this ceremony. So we were probably in about 30 minutes each time. And then we would come out and go back into the pool. Well, before going back into the pool, we would shower. We would just stand under the water, under the running clear water from a shower head, and then go back into the little pool. And then we would come back to the temazcal for the next door, is what he calls it, the next door. So, and then in between each time we would, go back into the cooling pool, he would first rest for a while in a little hammock outdoors, and then he would heat up the stones again and then call us back in to the temazcal. And so that's what we did. And so each time he would close the mat, he would close the door, then he would pour water onto the stones, and this would create the steam that then would create this heat in this temazcal. And it was really purifying, to be honest. It felt really good. He also had a pot with like herbs that he had boiled. So it had this really herby smell inside. It just felt very medicinal and very healing, very ceremonious. And while each door had a different kind of purpose or healing or intention, if you will. But before we would, do the thing that we were doing, the work that we were doing for each door, we would chant 3 chants. So the first chant, the first song was the following. It said, "Son las abuelitas, las piedras calientes, que nos purifican y nos limpian la mente," which translates into, "It is the grandmothers, the hot stones that purify us and purify our minds." So that was beautiful. Emotional right away, of course. The second chant was an elements song, and it went like this: "Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, y fuego mi espíritu," which translates to, "Earth is my body, water is my blood, air is my breath, and fire is my spirit." And the third chant was something like, "I am the light, you are the light, we are the light, receive my light." And then we would say, "I am peace, you are peace, we are peace, receive my peace." But the main one was, "I am the light, you are the light, we are the light, receive my light." And we would chant this over and over again, really loud. And it was beautiful. So now I'm going to share what we did in each one of the doors. In the first door, it was hot, but not intense heat. We set our intentions first. We went around the circle and shared our name and our intention. I did not know that we were going to be setting an intention, and I was not prepared for it. My brother and his girlfriend knew this because she had done a lot of reading on the Temazcal ceremonies, but didn't share this with me. So I really had no idea. And in the moment when it came my turn, what I was called to share was to simply receive the messages that were meant for me. And that's what my intention was. So what we did in this particular door was to release the toxins that were in our stomach. The shaman explained to us that we hold a lot of emotions in our stomach that then turn into toxins. And so that's what we worked on. We did breath work, we did the chanting, and we released these toxins from our stomach. And in the second door, I believe what we did in the second door was to release the emotions of these toxins. I can't remember for sure, but I can say that door number 2 definitely got hotter. And it felt like it definitely heated up. And my expectation was that door 3 and 4 were going to be even hotter each time. But that wasn't my experience. I felt that door number 3 did not get as hot as door number 2. I was really hoping it would get a little bit hotter at that point. But regardless, what we did in door number 3 was ancestral healing. And this was really emotional. We called in our entire lineage. We started with the grandmothers, both maternal and paternal, then our grandfathers, then our fathers, then our mothers, then our siblings, our family, then our friends, our friendships and our relationships. And we did a ceremony to heal all of those relationships. This was a relationship healing door. And this was really profound and really emotional. As we were also asking each one of these relationships, well, let me share with you. We started by calling them in one at a time. First, the grandmothers, and maternal and paternal. He told us to picture our maternal and paternal grandmothers. And then we went through this thing where he said, now say to them out loud, grandmother, I am sorry. I love you. Um, and it was a few more other things that I really can't remember. But at the end, I think we said something like, um, I thank you. We thanked them. Thank you for everything. Thank you for what you've done for me. And then in the end, we asked them, we said, now I need you to release me and allow me to go my own way. And that was really powerful. It really brought us to tears. For me, of course, more so when we called in our fathers, because my father passed away, and that was just really emotional. And there's a lot of things that I'm still processing from his death and just other stuff. And so that was really, really emotional. I know we were all in tears. Um, my brother was next to me, and I know he was having an emotional time. And of course, when we all came out of it and went back into the pool, then we would share our experience in between, obviously. And so we did share that we were all crying in this particular one. And so that was beautiful. And door number 4, our last door, it didn't get hotter, and that's okay. But in this particular one, we released all the final toxins that were left in our stomach and in our body by way of screaming at the top of our lungs several times. And he was asking us to scream louder and louder each time. And we did. Oh, it's so much that it hurt our throats. And I had been sick prior to that with a cough. So my throat was already in pain. And this just really hurt me more. But it also led me to not scream from my throat, but scream from my stomach rather. And I think that was a lot more powerful in that moment. At the end of the screaming, he had us all lay down in fetal position. And he guided us in a meditation that was somewhat of a hypnosis, astral travel. I felt like he took us up into the galaxy to see ourselves as shining stars, as the light amongst all the other stars in the universe, which just felt so beautiful given that we had spent already so much time saying, I am the light. You are the light. We are the light. Receive my light. And so being up amongst these stars in the universe, oh, it was so beautiful. And then he brought us back, and the ceremony concluded. We went back into the pool, and then we showered first in the running open shower after the sweat lodge, and then we changed into a different clothes. And at the end, he had us go back into the room, sit around the table, and he made us yerba mate tea. And we had a chance to talk to him. And I asked him how long the Temazcals have been around, where they were originated, a little bit more about his story, how he got to Costa Rica, how long ago. This shaman, his name was Eduardo, and he was from Argentina, but he had been in Costa Rica, I believe, for over 20 years. In that particular location, he had been for 17 years. And he had been doing the Temazcal ceremonies in that location for 15 years. So we talked to him about that. And so, yeah, as far as the experience itself, like I said, I was really scared going into it. It was something I had never done before. My thoughts were that this is something I would try after I tried an ayahuasca ceremony first. And now I know that I've never done an ayahuasca ceremony yet. I want to, and I've started reading into it and learning a little bit more about it. And now I know that that an ayahuasca ceremony is actually way more intense than a sweat lodge, specifically this sweat lodge, which was not as intense in heat as I thought it was going to be. And the reason why I think maybe it wasn't such as intense is I've been spending a lot of time in saunas, in my boyfriend's sauna specifically, at 135 degree Fahrenheit heat for up to 30 to 40 minutes. And I sit there in meditation and speaking to my spirit guides. And I think this really helped me prepare for this. And it just did not feel as intense to me. So that's the experience as far as physical and what happened in the Temazcal itself. But as far as my intention to receive the messages that were meant for me, I received a couple. One in particular that is very special that I will share today. In life, I was really close to my maternal grandmother. I spent a lot of meaningful time with her, a lot of quality time with her. We we spent a lot of time talking and doing a lot of things together, a lot of creative projects together. And I'll share more about her in another episode another time. But what I really want to talk about is that I just really didn't feel that I was as close to my paternal grandmother as I was to my maternal grandmother. My maternal grandmother also lived a lot longer than my paternal grandmother. My maternal grandmother, who we called Nina Chayo, she lived to be 92 or 93, and my mother cared for her in her final years. She moved to LA and was a lot closer to us, in her last couple of decades. My maternal grandmother lived first in her hometown and in Jalisco, and then in the 80s, moved to Mexico City, and that's where she lived the rest of her life and died. I lived in Mexico City for 5 years, and so I got to spend more time with her during that time period. But once I moved back here to LA to California in 87, I really didn't see her much after that. So I just really wasn't that close to her as I was to my maternal grandmother, who I would see on a regular basis. I remember just always often seeing my paternal grandmother, who we called Mama Tina, my abuelita. I felt that I always saw her working a lot. She was busy, keeping the family going. She and my grandfather were entrepreneurs. They had several businesses. From the time I was really little, I just always remember them working. I just felt that I really didn't have much in common with her because we s I didn't spend a lot of time with her and didn't really have the types of conversations and experiences that I had with my maternal grandmother. So both my grandmothers came in during our ceremony, and my paternal grandmother had a message for me. She's shown up before for me in different breathwork ceremonies and ancestral healing and meditation and dreams. But this time, she had a message for me. And she said to me, "You are more like me than you think you are." And I saw her in that moment as a multi passionate entrepreneur. And I was like, just shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, I am like you. With my grandfather, she ran a movie theater from their home in their small town of Tonaya, Jalisco, often on her own when my grandfather was traveling. She ran this movie theater. And I remember as a young little girl visiting them and helping, at the ticket counter at the concessions counter selling candy and popcorn or whatever they were selling, sodas and stuff, helping out. Según yo, I was helping. But they ran this movie theater. She ran it from her home at night. And they also had a bar and an ice cream shop that was across the street from their house. And while I don't remember her ever working the bar, she did work the ice cream shop. I do clearly remember that because that part of the shop, it was like two in one. It was the same space. But during the day, you know, there was drinking, but not as much as during the night when there was obviously more people coming in to have their drinks. During the day, it was mostly the ice cream shop. So she worked the ice cream shop and I would go with her and she would make the ice cream from scratch herself. She also made home squeezed juices, orange and um, cucumber, I believe, and carrot juice. And she sold it at the ice cream shop in the mornings, catching the people on their way to work or school. She was the OG juice bar. And she was so clever. Rather than selling it or having people come into the shop to the counter, the ice cream counter, she would set up a table with the juice maker and pre-packaged juices ready to go right at the entrance of the juice bar so that when people were walking by, they just handed her the money and she handed them their juice and they went on their way. And she was sitting there squeezing more fresh squeezed juice as she was selling, as people were walking by. And she had it set up in this little table, like a drive-through. She was so smart. And she also was an amazing seamstress, which I did not know. She made beautiful dresses for the women in town. I know this because my father shared stories with me. And she used to make these patterns herself, drawing directly on the fabric and cutting them without making a sample. And they would turn out perfect. They fit perfectly. Now, I didn't get to experience this. These are stories that my father tells me that she would make these beautiful draped dresses and how amazing it was because she never took a pattern making class or, and my father shared this with me because in college, I was really interested in fashion design, and I took pattern making courses and fashion design sketching courses, and I made dresses, and I made dresses for a fashion show. It was just something that I loved, that I did as a passion. My father talked me out of doing that as a career. He didn't think that I could do a career with that, you know. That's what happens. Immigrant parents, they want you to be in business, or a doctor, or a dentist, or a teacher, or an engineer. You know, so he talked me out of being a fashion designer, and I've shared more about that in other episodes. But all this to say that when I was taking the pattern design courses and doing all this fun stuff, he shared with me, he's like, your grandmother used to do this. She never made patterns the way you do, and she never made a sample before she cut out the real fabric the way you do. She just drew straight on the fabric and cut them out and sewed them, and they fit perfect. I think what she used to do was drape the fabric on their bodies. And for those of you who understand pattern making and draping, and then she would draw, on from the on the fabric, as the fabric draped on their bodies, to know where to cut. But anyways, she was multi-passionate entrepreneur trying to just make money wherever she could to keep the family going. She gave birth to 14 kids. Um, I think I met 10, including my father, and I think, gosh, maybe 7 siblings left now. But anyways, she really made me think when she came to me. I'm really like her. This is where I get my passion for entrepreneurship, and possibly even for fashion too. And well, maybe even my workaholic tendencies. There is more for me to process from this message, and I'm sure that more will come up as I start to work through this message and dive deeper. She clearly wanted me to know this. And one thing is for sure, this year I'm embracing the soft life. I'm embracing working in flow and with my cycles and with nature's cycles. This is the year that I will integrate more divine feminine energy into my business, and then into the businesses that I help my clients build through my group coaching program. It is already written out. I've already outlined it, and half of the business program is calling in that divine feminine, and being in creation with our higher self. And the second half, we're bringing in that divine masculine to build the structures and the processes and bring it to life. But this is the year that divine feminine energy comes in stronger, that I leave that hustle and grind behind, incorporating more space, more freedom, and more play into my days. Not work as many hours as I have in previous year. And yes, it has served me well. Yes, I have built 2 businesses. Yes, there was some need for that, but this isn't the way that I need to live the rest of my life. I know that we are indoctrinated to think that as entrepreneurs, we have to grind, we have to work 24/7. And while I do believe that there are times when we do have to touch our work on any given days, even on weekends, sometimes on vacations, I'm no longer subscribing to working 40 plus hours a week. I do love my business. And while I am away, like in Costa Rica, I do enjoy working on my business and making plans and creating programs, and writing out my outlines, and recording podcast episodes. I love that. It lights me up. So I'm not going to deny myself that. But I'm also not going to deny myself the space and the freedom to play and to rest. I remember my paternal grandmother, my abuelita, Mama Tina, always working, whether in the kitchen or cleaning or in one of the businesses. Maybe I am more like her. Maybe you are more like me than you think you are, is what she was trying to tell me. Maybe what she was trying to tell me is, do you really want to be remembered by working all the time? And the answer is no, I don't. Maybe this is the part that she wants me to release and to work on this year. And so I'm going to take that message with me this year. While I haven't created my business plan for the year or decided on my word of the year like I do every year, one thing I know for sure, I am embracing the soft life and bringing in more divine feminine energy. This is in honor of you, Mama Tina. So I'm sharing this experience with you because one thing my guides have been encouraging me to do more of is to do more self-work, to do more of these ceremonies and healing on myself, to participate in these types of modalities and healing sessions that I enjoy so much. But what they have also been sharing with me to do is to share them on this platform with you all, to bring these to you, to shine a light on these ceremonies and to share what this experience, what they're like and what I get out of them to spark something in you too. And this really excites me. It's exciting for me to do this. It excites me and makes my solar plexus pulse, which is when I know that this is meant for me. And that's why I'm doing this today. So I'm curious, have you done a Temazcal Sweat Lodge ceremony before or anything similar? I'd love to hear from you if you have. If you are open to sharing your experience on the podcast, let's do it. Send me an email at sonia@sonia-flores.com and let's get you scheduled. Or if there's a different type of modality that you offer, I'd love to check it out and receive a session and then share about it here as well. Let's shine a light on all these beautiful modalities and beautiful ways of healing. Something different resonates for different people. And also we pick up different things and receive different interests in participating in these modalities at different times. I mean, look at me. I had no idea 2 months ago, no interest in participating in the sweat lodge. And here we are. And what a beautiful message I received that is going to lead me into the next phase of my life. Well, that is all for today. May we all receive the healing we so much need, especially those affected by the LA fires. Sending you so much love and light. Hasta la próxima.